Hello there. Today I am going to share an article with you, not written by me, but written by Dr. Dennis Harness, who is a Vedic astrologer. I'm a Western astrologer, among other things, but there's a ton of overlap in the underlying philosophy behind every kind of astrology if it's practiced well, if it's practiced in the right ways. And in sharing a part of this article, I'm going to be describing elaborating on what Dr. Harness describes as 6 kinds of clients that you're likely to see as an astrologer who are not necessarily coming into your session or ordering a reading with the right intentions. They have some underlying motive or underlying issue that's not directly being addressed, that is actually pushing them to get a reading to begin with. You can go to Dennis Harness's website to read the entire article at dennisharness.com. And the article is called Vedic Astrology and Transpersonal Counseling. Okay, put a link in the description below. But what I'm going to be doing here is not simply parroting what the article says. I want to elaborate on it and sort of reinterpret it to ask you the question, are you one of these 6 kinds of inauthentic or disingenuous astrology students? Maybe you have rose-colored glasses coming into this new field. It's, maybe something someone said about astrology really struck your fancy and you wanted to learn more. And now you're doing a deep dive into astrology. Are you doing it with the right motivations and with the right mindset? Okay. So are you the right kind of astrology student? Are you one of these clients that might show up in my practice or Dr. Harness's practice that will ultimately give us kind of a hard time? It's not the kind of client we want to face necessarily, okay, because of the extra layer of ill intent behind the reading. So there's a right and a wrong way to do everything, to practice any kind of area of self-discovery or to improve our self-awareness or to cultivate our sense of self in one way or another. And I will say that in the most overarching manner that I can, you're doing it in the right way if you do it for the right reasons. And if those reasons ultimately reduce to you seeing astrology or whatever other field we're discussing as simply one of many tools given to us by God to improve our lives and our understanding of ourselves in the world, then you're on the right track. If that's what your reasons for practicing astrology ultimately reduce to, or if that's what it is directly. And you're not practicing it right if your reasons don't reduce to that. If it's something more like one of the 6 things that I'm about to describe right now. So let's get into it. The first kind of client you want to look out for, according to Dr. Harness. And in my interpretation, for the sake of this video, the first kind of client you don't want to be is the professional, who has usually been to at least a dozen other astrologers, psychics, numerologists, tarot readers in the last 12 months, and ultimately wants some person of authority to make their decisions for them. They have a strong case of psychic dependency, which interferes with them exerting their own will. I talk a lot on my channel about self-authority. Okay, whatever you can do to improve your self-authority, to expose yourself to challenges, physically, mentally, emotionally, in order to understand what you're made of and harden yourself against future cases so that you can become more autonomous in your decision making and in your actions in life, that's a good thing. That's something you should do. And astrology is absolutely one of many tools that are there technically laid out for us to learn about. There are long traditions behind every form of astrology, and they're there for the taking. They allow us to understand ourselves to the point that we improve our self-awareness and therefore improve our authority over our own decisions, strengthening our free will. But if you're the professional type who might know everything on paper, technically, and you're not really exposing yourself to anything and integrating anything that you learn, then you're not using astrology for the right reasons. And nothing is going to help you until you actually reclaim your own power. Second type is the skeptic. This client does not believe that astrology is credible and would enjoy proving you wrong. This can be the resistive husband that is brought to the consultation by the wife, or that person that is given the consultation as a birthday gift against their will. For example, I've had some of those. Even if your natal chart analysis is correct, they may deny your interpretation from lack of self-awareness. This type of client enjoys playing Stump the Astrologer. Usually there's a certain attitude, a Western left-brained attitude that comes along with this kind of client. It's the scientistic atheist type. It could also be the Western religious fanatic. These two people are one in the same when it comes to their archetypal view of astrology. Both camps reject astrology, and they ironically reject each other, even though they are psychically kind of the same person, right? With the same attitudes toward everything that's outside of their tribe or everything that's outside of their circle. This is unproductive. I would not recommend, if you're an astrologer, taking this kind of client on, no matter how fun you might think that it might be. It's ultimately a waste of time. Okay, we need to direct our energies toward productive, good, well-intended places and people. All right. We're here to help people. We're here ultimately just to be an ear for people to come to their own understanding of themselves in their own way. And we just help to guide them by use of these technical aspects in their birth chart. You know, the way that I give the way that I give a session, a consultation one-on-one is, for the most part, I don't do all that much talking. It's the other person talking. And as they bring up certain problems or emotions that they're having, certain things light up in their birth chart that I see, certain placements or aspects or degrees. And I say, this could give you some insight on where that is coming from. Let's talk about this and how that's connected to, let's say, you know, Venus and your seventh house and all the stuff you're concerned about regarding relationships, for example. Okay. So everything's connected. It's a web, you know, networked webbing of psychological connections. It's what a birth chart is, essentially. Karmic connections, if you like to use that word. But in any case, the skeptic is not open to this kind of consultation. That's what I'm getting at. All right. The ideal session that I like to do, this person will never even come close to faking it, right? Their line of questioning, it's going to be more them interrogating you if it's a one-on-one session. If it's a recorded reading that I'm doing, who knows? You know, they might not even listen to it, right? They're just seeking conflict in a way. So anyway, are you this type of person in digging into astrology? Are you on some motivated level trying to prove it wrong, trying to prove that it isn't legitimate. Well, if that's the attitude that you have underneath anything that might seem on the surface to be authentic, then you're not truly open to the wide array of wisdom, not just in terms of learning about your own birth chart, but learning about reality that astrology is here to afford us. It's a symbolic language for a reason, and that it's symbolic because it's not confined to the physical. Yes, we use physical planetary objects, but also some mathematical points that don't have physical substance to them in order to explain certain psychological things and proclivities in astrology. But it's so much more than that. You know, the archetypes that exist in the signs line up very nicely with, say, Carl Jung's 12 archetypes of the collective unconscious. You know, there are deep correlations between those different parallels of symbolism. So anyway, if this is your motivation to be skeptical, to try to prove it wrong, you're not going to take what it's there to provide you from it, because you're not truly open to it. The third type is the agreeable client. In this client's eyes, you are God incarnate. Every word you utter is the gospel truth. They see you as infallible. Be careful, though, because if someone makes you God, the devil is not far behind. If your predictions do not come to pass, you may experience the proverbial fall from grace. Very well put. All right, this is the same as, you know, making out your astrological authority to be, or any kind of authority to be, a sort of cult leader. There's always that fall from grace whenever you turn man into God in your perception. And so while this client can be very easy to work with, I've had a few of them, and it gives you a nice ego boost that, oh wow, they're just agreeing with everything I say. I must be really on it today. Ultimately, one must take a step back in all of that validation and see that, well, if it's all good, if it's all God, then there must be something else lurking behind their motivation and behind what will manifest if you stay on that track and just kind of keep taking it. So the agreeable client, lovely to work with in certain cases to certain extents, but that's when the astrologers' self-awareness and their integration of their knowledge of their own birth chart really comes into play. Understanding what's being lit up in my own chart when I have that kind of client that says, hell yeah, I'm going to keep going with this because it feels good, right? So to be a practitioner, one must also be a student. One must also be an integrated being to an extent. And again, just astrology is just one of the many tools available to us for this. The fourth type of client is the confessional. This client may see you as the priest or father confessor to absolve them of their sins. They may also want you to condone the behavior that they may feel guilt about. Depending on your own ethics and morality, this can be a very challenging situation, placing you in a godlike role. So it's not too different from the previous type, the agreeable client, who sort of indirectly sees you as a godly figure, but rather they are more directly, the confessional is more directly asking for that forgiveness from you as the astrologer. And so are you that kind of client? Are you actually seeking validation for your bad behavior? This is one of the main problems in the West. Okay. Pop astrology, Cosmo magazine, that is there to empower young women to be their own boss lady and do whatever they want whenever they want, thinking that they don't have to face the consequences of their actions. It's a very common approach to pop astrology nowadays, which, again, I'll reiterate as I have in other videos, focuses on sun signs. Sun is ego and identity, how you see yourself, and signs are about style of expression. It's about swag. It's a layer of style that's blanketed over whatever planet we're talking about, in this case, the sun. So, validating the bad behavior of one style of ego expression. Everyone is so self-centered in the West that no wonder this kind of pop astrology appeals to the masses, right? Leaving all of the nuance and accurate technicalities of astrology behind, unfortunately, giving astrology a bad rap on a grand scale. Okay. So the confessional can take that form, the casual sun sign astrology fan. But it can also be someone who is ridden with guilt and shame, who in the session feels like they're sitting in a confessional and they want to be absolved of their sins. And that's not really the role that I'm supposed to play as an astrologer. A good balance of validating one's good traits and also validating that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have dips in consciousness every now and then, every day to some degree. It's fine, right? Having a balance between that and also being hyper realistic about what the negative aspects of somebody's chart are, and giving them a little bit of tough love and a little bit of a nudge to take responsibility for whatever behavior they're trying to absolve themselves of. All right, there has to be a balance between those two things. Number 5, rescue me. This client is looking for the magic pill, and by the astrologer waving the magic wand, everything will be fine. They also want to know when Prince Charming is going to arrive, or what are their lucky numbers for the lottery. After the session, the astrologer may feel mentally and physically drained. Yes, I've had a few of these clients myself. Again, not so different than them pushing the client pushing the astrologer into the godlike role. But in this case, it's taking the form of specific questions that, if we're being honest, in our practice of astrology is not really equipped to answer. Astrology is a timing system. It gives us windows of opportunity to do certain things. It also tells us roughly what form events in our lives are going to take. But it doesn't describe all of the specific nuances that are going to result, that are going to manifest within that form. It's more about what's the context that you're going to be dealing with when this planet is in this sign, in this house of your chart, aspecting that other planet in that house. Okay. That's the way to look at it. So people can be prepared for the form of what is to come. What kinds of things are going to result? What kinds of things am I likely going to have to deal with? So they can start orienting their perception toward expecting a certain kind of thing to happen, but not a specific event to result, right? Now, some astrologers can give you specific information like that, but really what they're doing is being a psychic. They're using their psychic abilities to provide the content that they're giving you. And they're using astrology as a technical system within which to give their psychic insights legitimacy or understanding, so you can actually grasp how it is maybe they know that. Even if you don't understand the astrology yourself, you can at least feel validated that the psychic's insights are going to come through fruition if they have some kind of, again, left-brained logical explanation for how that might happen or why it might happen. Okay. Also, it tends to be more common in Vedic astrology circles, I think, to give more specific information. There is an area of astrology called horary astrology, which seeks to answer specific questions. Like sometimes, when am I going to get married, down to the date on a particular year. And at the end of the day, the more specific the question, the less important it is, because we're reducing the information that we get down to a fact. And facts need context to have meaning. So in my approach, for one, because I'm not a psychic, but also this is just what I think to be true, is that we're better off giving someone a view, a well-rounded perspective of the context itself, and therefore the meaning itself, the container within which facts derive their meaning, so that whenever facts arrive, events happen, objects emerge, they have a structure of understanding to make sense of that thing, that event, whatever it is. Okay. So I like to focus on context, general meaning, so that I'm teaching my client to fish, so to speak, rather than catching a fish for them. The sixth and final type of client we'll talk about, which you may be embodying, and there are many more. There are just 6 in Dr. Harness's article here, is the victim. They believe that the difficult aspects in their natal chart are further proof that God is punishing them. The goal is to try to help them release the role of playing the victim and become an active participant in turning their life around. They created their karmic situation so they can also heal it. They need to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that it's not a train. Okay, so again, this comes back to self-authority that I always talk about. They're not on a train being, I'll talk to you, okay, whoever's watching this. You're not on a train being conducted by another conscious being, where your life and reality itself is fatalistic. You have no control over where that train is going, where the tracks lead, where it's going to end up, whether it's going to stop nicely and peacefully at a train station of your liking, or whether it's going to crash in a tunnel and burn you to death. Okay. So there's a mistaken, fatalistic, nihilistic view of the world that underlies this victim mindset. Okay, that nothing is in your control. It's a relinquishment of responsibility because you feel bad when certain things happen to you, and you see certain negative aspects in your chart that you are choosing to embody by not taking responsibility for your actions, by the way, or the consequences that follow them. That's going to dig you deeper and deeper into the pit of nihilism, and you're not going to see the world as anything else but a place to simply, as I like to say, sit on that raft and go barreling down the river without a paddle and without a perspective on things. Right? Astrology gives us the paddle with which to navigate the river of life on our raft that we have built. Again, we can choose to dock it and jump up on higher ground to see what's around the next bend, so that we can prepare maybe our raft, our tools for it. But at some point, we have to still move forward. Life is progress, and we have to get back on that raft and float back down that river. And the better, more self-aware we are through astrology or through any other means that actually work and give value to individuals, the more smooth our journey is going to be. And that requires a certain amount of work and a certain quality of work in the short term to make things better in the long term. Okay. And whenever you put in that work, and the sooner you take responsibility for your own perspective, for your own actions, the sooner you're going to reap the benefits of that. And you know, you have to change your mindset as quickly as possible, but then actually do. Sometimes that comes through doing the work and seeing little minor benefits that come from little work that you do on yourself to get rid of that victim mindset here and there. You know, that you can truly take responsibility and own the good things that come to you in your life if you're willing to take responsibility for the things you perceive as bad and uncomfortable. Okay, so you can't have the good without the bad without the good. Can't be God without being the devil, as well, as one of the points said. So, do you embody any of these client archetypes, that all of which I've seen in my practice, that I'm sure Dennis Harness has seen many more of in his practice, and there are other kinds too. Point of this video is just to ask you to question your motivations behind studying astrology, behind interpreting your interpretation of the insights that astrology is here to give us. What is astrology to you? Is it something to abolish you of your sins? Is it something to be simply refuted because you feel like it'll give you this ego boost because you're a scientific atheist or a radical Western religious fanatic? Is it a place? Is it a tool to look for, within which to look for authority figures to make your own decisions, or to just tell you to do something? Look, I always say that in my practice, I don't tell you what to do. I help you own what you choose to do. All right. And we can only come to that if we accept astrology for what it actually is. That is one of many tools given to us by God, by the universe, whatever you want to call it, to improve our lives, to understand ourselves and the world better, and to ultimately help others do the same. So, hope you enjoyed this video, and stick around for more. Have a good day. Cheers.